Yuan Ming. Written in stone, every rule, every word, centuries old and unbending. This is part of the song that we've just heard. Disney's Aladdin, Speechless. It's an interesting song if you are looking for a replacement for Unfounded Suspicions, our pattern of choice for today. Written in stone, every rule, every word. For centuries and unbending. Unfounded suspicions is a pattern that separates us from others because we don't trust ourselves. We can't find our heart. And because we can't find our heart and trust ourselves, we of course cannot trust the other humans, be it in our family, in our working environment, be it in a system, if it's ecologic system or economic system or the system of justice, etc., the system of health. When we don't trust ourselves, well, it is going to be difficult to not have suspicions because we will have difficulty with another pattern, which we call in Renshe indecisiveness. So we will have some issues with making decisions about facts. So when we talk about the pattern of unfounded suspicions, what we mean is non-factual stuff, stuff that has no facts. And it's the one pattern that gets us so easily because we don't trust ourselves. So now doubt can sneak in about what is fact and what is no fact. And let's say, for example, we live in a system of communism. The idea is quite interesting, actually, right? We all are equal and we get the same amount from the state. It doesn't sound so bad. Democracy also has its ideas about, or its ideas about how we live socially. And then the society itself upholds those almost standards of a value system, for example. What are the values within all the systems we have in our societies? And are those standards really written in stone? Does it really pay off to follow every tradition blindly? Can you see how this is the opposite of unfounded suspicions? Doubt, trust, unfounded suspicion, and how do we follow the laws when the laws are the laws in the country? or that seems to be a law of society. And can you see how then avoiding and hiding comes in, connecting to unfounded suspicion? Because then our own insecurities about self coming in. And so we start to bend ourselves into the rules written in stone, every word, every rule. So it takes a lot of looking into it. And we are going to hear quite a lot more about it in form of Jance's thoughts and ideas around unfounded suspicions, but I wanted to bring in my own ideas. And for me, mostly this is about when I personally take responsibility and first of all do the work with chi, because then I can observe chi. That enables me to follow the laws of the universe closer, because when I can observe chi, or when I know about the laws of chi, chi always flows with the laws of the universe, yeah, in its natural state. Of course, chi can get sick. So here we get into the theory of Renshe number 2, the theory of Shen Yi, of the true self and consciousness. So we need to purify our consciousness in order for the chi to keep flowing healthy. But we can observe the chi in nature, and we can also observe the chi in the universe. We can either see it or we can feel it. Some people can hear chi. So you have a different gauge. And then especially with chi and your ability to observe your consciousness and the activities of your consciousness, then you can also observe the activities of your Shin Ling, which is for us part of our consciousness, right? It's all Shen. There is Qing Shen, there is Shen, there is Yi, there is Shin Ling. There's all these aspects to Shen. And when you can observe your heart and the state of your heart, then you will see very clearly how your personal doubt and the pattern of doubt, meaning how doubt is sneaking its way in to render you speechless, basically, to come back to the song. So when your heart's open, you can, for example, connect with information in many ways, like with songs. This is why this is what my consciousness is doing. It's connecting to songs, and it seems to play with the wording in there. And I always find a song fitting to a pattern that helps me when I am stuck in a pattern. This is just one way of doing it. Yeah, of course, there's so many ways. So this is why I'm trying to have the song thing flow into the web classes a little bit, because music can be so touching the heart. There's all the underlying things in music, not just the information of the words, but of course the harmonies vibrating and establishing a certain type of harmony in your heart. And then when the information comes in and the heart has opened a little bit, in our case today, in regards of an unfounded suspicion, or just suspicion in any case, even if the suspicion is not founded, won't you do better to go into trust? What do you reckon? What do you think about that? Won't it be better for you to operate from a state of trust, even if your suspicions might be rooted in a fact that it's good to not partake in something. So here comes the difficulty. Circling back to then many other patterns. Yeah? Well, the pattern of lack of trust on the heart level, the Shinling level, indecisiveness, avoiding and hiding. Also, what's very strongly tied into this is then, of course, the need to resort to self-centeredness or to greed. Negativity, pessimism, withdrawal, and inactivity. This pattern is always part of everyone, which we will hear about a bit next week. Polarized thinking, overgeneralization. Very often we have a polarized way of looking at something, and this is why we are being thrown into unfounded suspicions. Overgeneralization. How has your practice been this week? Oh, that reminds me. So every day I practice. I'm smiling because I'm wondering if I should say the next thing. I will say it. I'm not speechless any longer. I practiced 5 hours of Yuan today. That's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to sit and observe and sit and practice Yuan. And, because 3 days ago, an overgeneralization came up for me. I would love to share that with you again, just so you have a little bit of an, example. So I don't know if you know me very well or not, but if you know me very well, then you know I have a bit of a man trouble pattern going on. Wanting a boyfriend so bad, but no man seems to stick with me, which through avoiding and hiding or working on avoiding and hiding and the polarized thinking and now the overgeneralization and of course all the other patterns involved is starting to dawn on me a bit more. But this week, 3 days ago, something that I personally would call ridiculous came up. And again, here comes the avoiding and hiding, not wanting to share that with you, but I have decided to be no longer speechless and to walk, ahead of some of us if they want someone to walk ahead, like an icebreaker a little bit. And I really, it's still a little bit of a mystery. I haven't found out more yet why I would have had that, what I call ridiculous thought. That means for me that it must have to do something with before this life, because it makes no sense to me. But when I was between 10 to 16 years of age, I said something to my friends and families whenever the topic would come up. And honestly, I had completely forgotten about it. So using avoiding and hiding as an umbrella to go into every pattern with this intention going into it brought me following sentence. This is what I used to say as a 9 or 10-year-old child. I started. I'm a bit. I will have boyfriends that are older than me until I'm 30 or 40. And once I'm 40, I will have boyfriends that are younger than me. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to think, say. What an overgeneralization, self-fulfilling prophecy we have learned last week is part of this. I hope I'm not boring you with my patterns, but sometimes good to hear a bit of a funny story, and I find it funny. It wasn't so funny yesterday when, it grabbed me a little bit to be kind of, I didn't have the humor that I have today after practicing 5 hours with it. And of course, it wasn't only about that phrase, right? Practicing Ling Yuan in the free flow is allowing your consciousness to connect. Well, actually, all Ling Yuan allows you to connect with all the aspects and connections into other patterns, of course, because the causes or the reasons for holding on to them could be other patterns. And so yesterday, it was all a bit difficult because I just, I wasn't unified enough, obviously, or the information came up, right, 3 days ago. And so it was working on me. And my mind, of course, got involved in trying to help me sort this. And that didn't work out, of course, you know. Today I came back to trust fitting to the next patterns. And it was like, well, there will be some reason. But of course, what I had to do was practice forgiveness for being so stupid, basically, for myself. And it seems that I never have anything that I need to forgive other people, or I can do that really quickly, but myself. And I just, when it came up, it was so clear in my face. This was a self-fulfilling prophecy. This is what happens in my book. So I actually took that sentence and took myself in that age and sort of wrapped it up into a G heart. That was just, I started playing with it because I knew I had to dissolve this. I had to free myself from this pattern. So I did that. I sat there with closed eyes and I visualized this pattern being wrapped up in a bright G heart. And then I actually um, I actually set it on fire, and then I had the crumbles. I had the crumbles of the ash. As when you burn paper, you have some residue, right? And those then I put in another G heart, and then I sent it out into the universe, and the G heart started to dissolving in front of my eyes, and I went then into the other information of where the avoiding and hiding came in with the self-fulfilled prophecy. And um, the next question was, what is your intention in regard of what to do with this pattern? And first was the releasing it and forgiving myself and freeing it. And then I made a commitment to myself, and that is that when the right person comes along, I will take the responsibility and love one person for the rest of this physical life, and who knows how much longer, but decently. Commitment and responsibility. Sorry, there's just. Oh, all good? Okay, I'm sorry, just a message came in and I needed to put that away. Okay. Yeah. So I saw that this self-fulfilling prophecy, because for years now I've kept thinking, why? And I went through all this avoiding and hiding stuff, and the victimhood, the self-centeredness of the victimhood of why does nobody love me? I'm such a lovely person, and which I still believe I am, but it was completely, and I couldn't find it. And I think this was it. I feel a huge transformation inside of me. And it has to do with the process of this whole Ling Yuan class. Again, thank you for all of you who are participating. Yeah, I feel free of this self-fulfilling prophecy that I did not even know I was under that spell, so to speak. I really I had no memory of me thinking like this once. And then, of course, looking into deeper and deeper today in the 5 hours, which, of course, I'm not done with that process, but what I can share with you, it has to do with not wanting to take responsibility, which, of course, in turn is again a reason for running away from the true self, of surrendering to my true self and not being able to be absorbed by the true self because I'm avoiding to take responsibility, full responsibility. And my false self always tries to suggest to me how much work I will have then and how much responsibilities I will have then. So that's another part of my avoiding and hiding. And it's getting better because one aspect by another aspect of my life, I look at this, and I know you're helping me. And I hope I'm helping you with this process as well. So, unfounded suspicions ties into today because that is a direct result out of that self-fulfilling prophecy in this case for me. So I'm telling you this story that is, I reckon, so ridiculous. And what did Kelly once say? Not really, she didn't really think that this was something to particularly to share. And honestly, I felt a bit like that, but today I've got the humor back and the freedom, so I'm happy to share it so you can see how ridiculous the false self actually works. And I'm happy to open myself like this for you. Even though it might be a bit difficult, or, I might be giving my avoiding and hiding a little bit of fodder to maybe activate itself again, but that's my commitment and my responsibility I've taken on quite a few weeks ago now, consciously. No more hiding and avoiding, no more avoiding and hiding. I don't want to fight anymore with myself. I just want to be in peace and in freedom. And I'm so happy to, inject this information from my heart into the chi field as well. So you all can benefit from it. As I know I'm benefiting from your participation. So, well, if you want to share any funny, ridiculous stories, I welcome you. It's just floating into my consciousness now. So we're going to stay in the here and now, but just so you have a little bit more uh, um, like grasp on the next few classes. Next week will be negativity, pessimism, inactivity, and withdrawal. And the week after, we will do fixed expectations, false assumption, taking things for granted, and preconceptions. The patterns, the fundamental patterns are a mouthful, aren't they? And then we'll have a 2 or 3 week break. I don't know yet actually how it works with the calendar over Christmas. I do believe the fixed expectation pattern actually falls into the weekend with the workshop with Janse. But I've decided to do a week, a workshop on a web class, a Yuan Ming free flow web class, the weekend where the workshop is, because many people, so there's about 30 to 60 people, it's fluctuating a bit, but 30 to 60 people are actually watching our class. Yay. And since most of the people watch that on recordings anyway, we might as well do one, even on the workshop with Jansen and about Churcha. And the fixed expectation pattern is a very involved in all the others somehow. So we have a longer period to work with that, which I thought was quite nice. Well, negativity pattern would be good like that too, but I think we're all very aware of that one. That one is easy to see. Okay. So let's unify, or do I have something else? Oh yeah, something else is coming to my mind. So someone asked me, when I was sharing with someone from the web class also, and from my students, which is also a friend, of course, a dear friend. Um, we've been sharing a little bit what's been going on, listening to each other and laughing, helping each other uh, about this. Basically, what I do with you here in the web class. And so she shared with me something, and I've been listening. And then I got very quiet because I became aware that she wasn't aware of her progress, of that process, the progress in this process of daily Ling Yuan. So, first of all, in the beginning, when we started, she didn't quite get into daily Ling Yuan completely. And that day we shared, she's like, actually, today is my first day where I even did 2 Ling Yuans. And so she, the avoiding and hiding really diminished. And so she could start facing herself daily. And the other thing was that there was something else that she wasn't aware of. Um, I actually haven't particularly asked her for permission to talk about this, so I will keep it very random. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it was, but it was something that she wasn't aware that she had shifted that. And I waited till she was finished, and then I said, "Hey, are you aware that you've shifted this big thing?" And I could feel it in, she sort of like, it was a real aha moment. She wasn't able to observe that yet for herself, because that's what the avoiding and hiding pattern also does, right? It drags us into those polarization and overgeneralizations, and we live after them for years and decades without knowing even that we're under the influence of them, like a puppet on a string. And sometimes, individual help with someone that you trust is really necessary, to just even be asked, can you not see that progress that you've made? Can you see the change there? And sometimes, because it's just a little tiny change or a tiny shift, we ourselves don't recognize it. But when you can give off your control and do a session with someone who has a bit more clarity and can observe for you as well, then you might see a big shift, or you might see that there was a change. And that, of course, in turn is very powerful replacement information. Because we also have a lot of unfounded suspicions about ourselves, don't we? We can't change. I can't be in my heart. I can't find my heart. And then, of course, what shall we think of the others? We forget that they simply cannot find their hearts. No, we feel victimized, we feel hurt, we feel damaged by someone else. And here comes the false self and wants to blame, and also wants to feel powerless or speechless. So when we learn to communicate, and I mean that a little different than what currently is a little bit this understanding of speak up for yourself, speak out for yourself. I also want to say that this is maybe a bit strong in the song Speechless. I won't be speechless any longer. and I'm not going to let anybody cut me down anymore, which is important to look into and understand that a lot of the approval seeking and avoiding and hiding comes from there. Just remember, the true self doesn't want to fight, doesn't want to argue, doesn't want to be in conflict with ourselves or others. But you do want to be in a way that you can be truly yourself, that you can say the things that are appropriate and kind, but uplifting and also conflict clearing. So communication from the heart has a lot to do, being able to communicate from the heart and clear conflict between us humans, clear misunderstandings, clear suspicion, has a lot to do with the ability to communicate in a kind but honest way without the fear of avoiding and hiding, without this insecurity, the fear of not being allowed to be yourself, not being allowed to say what you think because of somebody might, ostracize you or shun you or start talking bad about you because they start projecting, which is what we've learned last week, another overgeneralization, right? To project our own insecurities onto someone else, which is also avoiding and hiding. And we are scared of first impressions, what we've heard last week. So can you see how the patterns are really working with one another? Yeah? And so learning to communicate and speak up, to no longer be speechless, because you are free inside to be who you truly are and to say the things that you really need to say. You know, to not be a victim doesn't mean to acknowledge that someone else hurt you. How is that person going to learn that this is hurtful to other people? So we need to learn to communicate it in a way that we maybe don't trigger the other patterns too much, but still are true to ourselves. Being speechless no longer is not that simple. It's quite actually it's simple, but it's quite a complex situation inside of us. Yeah. So thank you for listening, and let's have a look what Janse has to listen or has to say to us about this pattern. And we will continue to work without Janse's texts after we have done the 30 patterns. We will continue to do pattern work. We will continue to support each other once that's done. But then we will see what we can come up ourselves with. We can come up with ourselves. The simple solution is trust. Finding trust in yourself and then learning how to communicate. Because through communication, we also can find facts. Let's see. I'm really looking forward to reading this because I've been so busy and I haven't had actually time to read this before class. So I have read it a year ago, at least last time or so, but yeah. So we're first going to unify, and then we are going to see what Janse can tell us. In order to inspire us our own Shen to come up with the information, the personal information we need to find for, all the hidden bits and pieces, and then we can move forward self-autonomously eventually. And self-governing, then we can follow the laws, but we can also govern ourselves. And when many people are doing this, which is actually my ultimate, my totality picture, or my understanding within totality about this pattern of unfounded suspicion. When every single one of us manages to manage our own state around that pattern, yeah, like Yuan says mastering our state around this pattern, then the society can heal big time, because we will communicate with trust and love with one another, with an openness that we will not frighten back of saying things that might be hurtful. We can say it in a way so the other person can see, oh, all right, I wasn't able to hear this because I'm suspicious, or because I'm avoiding, or etc., etc. So unfounded suspicions for me has a lot to do with this pattern of being tormented by loss and gain. The fear of losing a connection or a loved one, or the fear of losing something or someone out of our life because we speak up in a way that oneself needed to express. It's not about telling the others off or telling what we see in the others. It's about being not speechless about how I feel about something that has happened to me, objectively or subjectively. But we need to communicate so we can clear the suspicion and the non-factual things. Yeah. And when we are afraid of losing something, or afraid of not gaining something, then we might be stuck in having to be speechless. And then, of course, we don't feel expressed. And then either anger or fighting for dominance, or suppression, shyness, and anxiety come up. Yeah. And on one retreat, Janse said this, and this burned itself into my heart. When he was talking about unfounded suspicion, he said, if you are accepting the loss of everything, then you will be free of suspicions, and you will be free of the being tormented by loss and gain, because then you can trust the universe and the laws, meaning you can trust your own Tao, your destiny, which is part of the big Tao. You can then trust that everything that you have or will have in your life can't be lost, because it is destiny, it is Tao. And anything you want but might be patterned and you won't have it, you can relax, because you probably will never have it if you're not supposed to have it according to your destiny or Tao. So a lot of relaxedness can come into your life. A lot of calmness can come into your life. And trust will increase even more. And then when you send that out from your inside, from your head continuously, instead of suspicions, then you will have beautiful relationships and a beautiful moment, every moment in your heart, everywhere, with everyone, and anytime. Okay, so it's time to sit up for building the chi field. If you can, lifting up from Bai Hui, drawing back your vision. Relax your whole body. Relax your whole body. Keep relaxing. Lift Hui in to lower Dantian. Expand out, becoming one with the universe. Draw chi back and go into the heart quality of calmness, the willingness to be peaceful and to create peace inside of you. Honestly, no matter what. Create the willingness to free yourself of the shackles of the patterns. Go into state of love for yourself. Go into the state of love for others. Open out into the universe. Embrace all humans. And allow this confession to flow, this compassion to flow back into your heart and fill your own heart. Because you have compassion for others and because you want to clear this pattern for yourself. But this also means that you are helping others because there's less compassion. There's more compassion in the world and less unfounded suspicion. Connect with this compassion in your heart for yourself and for others and see how you feel free and relaxed and joyful. And observe how your chi is flowing smoothly and harmoniously. Now doing this form of 6 verses and this preparing for yourself. Now feel the vitality you have set free inside of you. Trust the creativity you have set free inside of you. And feel the desire to change even more inside of you. Feel it. You are ready. Now go into your heart and connect with heaven, the whole universe and the chi field. Connect with earth, the whole nature and all its dwellings, all its beings, all its dwellers, everyone and everything living in some form on this planet, existing in some form. Now connect with all humans, because all three of them, heaven, earth, and humans, are your teachers with infinite wisdom. Open yourself out. Open your door to your heart and your heart. And receive their love and wisdom unconditionally. With gratitude in your heart. Now connect with your Shen, your Yi, and your Shin. Throw all doubts out and fully trust that you are fully aligned with your Shen, Yi, and Shin, and with Tao. You are following the laws more and more. Trust this unconditionally, like you trust heaven, earth, and human. Trust yourself. And with Gong Ching, even more realization and wisdom are arising. Go deep inside your heart and free of all suspicions in full trust. Tell yourself, I am one with the light of the wisdom of the universe. Now go into your heart and allow it to open up, expand, so heart and head become one. The space where your Shen has its seat, its center. Shen Yi and Xin Ling have become one, have become unified, and are ready to communicate with one another about the following information. If you've gone into deep state and are unified, you can stay sitting up. If you feel like you want to now lay down, because you can relax even deeper, go ahead. Unfounded suspicions or non-factual stuff or guessing. The origins and background. The evolution and development of the human species. In primitive societies, the main threat to survival came from nature, including the elements, like wind, water, earth, etc., and wild animals. Humans had to maintain a high level of vigilance and constantly scout for potential danger in order to preemptively protect themselves. Hunting at that time was the main way to sustain life. To increase the success rate, our ancestors had to learn about animal behavior patterns through a lot of guessing and predicting. Furthermore, in order to protect what they possessed and their self-interest, they had to remain suspicious to detect potential danger in order to defend themselves from other people. All of these contributed to the formation of this pattern. Second aspect of the origins and background is the basic instincts and needs on the level of human nature. The human instinct to seek benefit or interest and avoid harm, seek simplicity and easy solution, and avoid complexity, extra work, is the main driving force that propelled the formation of this pattern. So, can you see how what I was talking about before is involved here? Yeah. We are seeking benefit and avoiding harm, or seeking interest and avoiding harm. We're seeking simplicity and easy solution and avoiding complexity, extra work. Communication on a heart level is very much often that. Often we don't say things because it seems too complex, or we don't have the time, meaning we haven't managed to find out how we can find time to have these meaningful conversations on a heart level. Number 3, social and cultural environment. As human civilization evolved, humans were able to create and use tools and be more productive. Language also developed, both verbal and written. The relationship between humans became more and more complex, and feelings became more and more sophisticated. Knowing other people's thoughts and feelings became necessary for both protecting one's own interests and maintaining good relationships. The development of the ability to guess and estimate was a natural outcome of the evolving natural, social, and cultural environment. In the past century, the means to make products has undergone rapid development. Now, in the 21st century, we are at a time when machines are so efficient in manufacturing products that consumer goods in large quantities are made available to the masses, stimulating the desire to produce even more and more and more. It is fertile ground for greed. As more and more resources become available, greed for money, power, sex, and control also grow. When one is controlled by a strong desire to get something, constantly obsessed with loss and gain, it is easy to become suspicious and lose trust. In reality, many things can obstruct the interactions between people. One of the common ones is suspicion, which can be found in couples, siblings, parents and children, colleagues, etc. Both social and cultural influences play a big role in this. In Chinese culture, many commonly accepted ideas on this topic have been passed down from generation to generation. For example, one should not have the intention to harm others, but should remain vigilant and ready to defend oneself against others. So the following things, and this is not our view in Renshe, right? We're just looking into the origins and background. One would rather believe it is true that something is potentially dangerous rather than not true. So in other words, it's easier to believe the danger than the safety that we actually are in according to the laws of the universe and its support. It is always advisable to be prepared for danger, even when one is in a safe and secure time and environment. If one does not consider the distant future, he will certainly have immediate troubles. These common sayings are to remind people to be prepared for potential risks or dangers. The common theme seems to be that it is better to be somewhat negative about reality and the future in order to be more prepared. Although it makes sense for self-protection, overemphasis or overdevelopment of this type of thinking can contribute to the pattern of suspicion. A person can also develop this pattern in a micro-social and cultural environment, for example, in a group, community, or work environment. If filled with politics or things going on behind one's back, people can naturally become suspicious and on guard. If acting this way for a long time, a pattern can form. Number 4, family environment. Family environment can play a role in the formation of this pattern. For example, when parents treat children in an authoritative style, children can feel oppressed. This dynamic can contribute to the development of qualities such as lack of confidence and fear. One may have difficulty making decisions or taking initiative, and one can be afraid of making mistakes. A person like this can often be overly cautious and constantly on guard and suspicious. Number 5. When the macro-social environment is characterized by a low level of trust or lacking in the sense of security, it can certainly influence the education system. So now we're looking at education. Let's think about this one moment. When the environment that we are in, and that sort of creates a certain educational system, and this environment is characterized by low level of trust or lacking in a sense of security, how is the educational system affected? So in other words, what if all we focus on in an educational system is the academics, in which the mind is trained and strengthened and the heart is weakened and even totally neglected, or maybe not even involved at all? Not only that, if there is no proactive emphasis on the development of trust and sense of security, the system itself may even provide ground for the development of the pattern of suspicion. Number 6, personal factors. Personal factors can play a strong role in the formation of the pattern of suspicion. If a person allows personal desires such as greed for money, power, or sex to grow without exercising much control, suspicion is likely to grow with it. This is interesting, right? So, when we are experiencing to be suspicious, meaning the lack of trust and security, then we will be plagued by a bigger desire of things we can fill that hole in our hearts. Yeah, that hole in our chest. When we are in our heart and we are our true self, or even on the way to the true self, more and more being able in our heart space won't feel like a hole, and we won't have to fill that hole up with other things, which won't work anyway. But when we reverse that from a point of view, or when we see it from a different point of view, the reverse point of view, why we need this and this and this and this so much, and we are basically addicted or dependent on many of these things. When we work on unfounded suspicions and the state of suspicion, we can actually get rid of a lot of our addictions and dependencies. Very interesting pattern, right? Very worth to look at it. On the contrary, if a person is selfless, willing to offer unconditional love and to give, then he or she will have very little to fear or to worry about. In other words, when one is overly focused on one's own loss and gain, and always making self-interest the top priority, the mentality of harboring or hiding something is likely to develop, which naturally prompts one to be extremely cautious oneself. Often this person will look at people and things from a very skewed perspective. Bit by bit, this can contribute to the development of the pattern of distrust and suspicion. general and specific manifestations. Let's start this section with a Chinese parable. Parable, a story. It's called A Suspect for Stealing an Axe. Once upon a time, there was a farmer who lost his axe. He suspected that his neighbor's son stole it, so he started to watch that child. Everything he saw reinforced his suspicion. The way the child looked, the way the child acted, the way the child walked, the way the child talked, and the things the child said, everything confirmed now that this child was the person stealing the axe. A few days later, when digging in the soil on his farm, the farmer found the axe. Obviously, he himself had left the axe behind. Since then, the neighbor's son hasn't looked a bit like he had stolen an axe. So, very cute story, right? When one is suspicious, perceptions can often be twisted. One can easily misinterpret what others say and do. I repeat that. One can easily misinterpret what others say and do. This is when we don't trust, right? We interpret the others to do anything that might completely be not true and false. If two people are whispering, we can be wondering if they are speaking about us. One can be constantly worried whether other people are doing things that can be harmful to one's own interests. Suspicion puts a person in a state of tension. Judgments can be made based on unfounded thoughts, on imagination and misinterpretations, rather than truth. Other people are often cast in the role of enemy, making honest encounters difficult and posing obstacles to building healthy and harmonious relationships. To better understand the pattern of suspicion, let's look further into its causes and consequences more specifically. There is 4 parts. I will first name the parts and then we will read about them. Number 1 is lack of basic openness and trust. Number 2, locking oneself in so-called closed circuit thinking. Number 3, believing rumors. And number 4, past negative experiences. Let's look at lack of basic openness and trust. Due to lack of openness and trust, one can easily question other people's motivations or look at other people in a negative light. Their goodwill or normal behavior can easily be misunderstood or misinterpreted. Their compliments can be interpreted as sarcasm or as ridicule. Their comments can be taken personally. When a person is not actively reaching out to you, it can be interpreted as intentionally keeping distance from you or isolating you. Let me just add a little bit here. Can you see how the unfounded suspicion pattern can be used by your false self to sneak again back into victimhood? Yeah? To put us back into self-centeredness. Number 2, locking oneself in closed circuit thinking. So this is when the thinking goes round and we can't enter out of that danger. This is dangerous. This situation is dangerous. This situation I'm in is dangerous. What if this and this bad thing happens? This is this. Do you know that state when you cannot stop thinking about a problem and it just keeps getting worse and worse inside of you? That's what he means with locking oneself into closed circuit thinking. When a person is completely set and locked in his own way of thinking, it is like running in a closed circuit. Nothing can break in or break out of the circle the person draws. This inevitably makes the person see everything through a filtered lens with no intention of adjusting his views, no matter what. As a result, everything gets twisted in a negative way. When everything one sees is negative, suspicion will naturally develop. So we can also see the sticky fingers of the pattern stubbornness here. Number 3, believing rumors. Rumors and misinformation are widely circulated in our society. The majority of them are related to negative things or are negative in nature. I really would like to add here to really invite you to do a lot of observing around this one here, because it has to do with our loss and gain pattern, right? What are we willing to lose? What are we willing to disattach ourselves? My beloved mommy, she currently has a bit of a problem with her back pain, and she hasn't asked me for a session yet. So I'm still waiting for, being in the position to help her, to be allowed to help her until she's ready to be helped on the level that I can help. But her back pain, she's, you know, she's not willing to live Christmas without Christmas cookies that she baked herself. Of course, standing hours and hours in the kitchen, not very conducive to her back. But, patterns are patterns. And before someone isn't willing to look at them, you all know about my love for my mother. So again, she's just so close to me. And, I know she would be thrilled for me to, use her as a beautiful example, because this is a cute one, right? It's cute. You just don't want to live without Christmas cookies, self-baked ones. Well, I really would like to invite you to look into traditions. How did the song say today? That's why I picked the song to a big degree as well. Written in stone, all these rules and all these words, every word, every rule, we could also call it every tradition, locking us into this space. When we keep holding on to these attachments, we will be dependent. We won't be free. Sometimes giving up traditions accepting the loss of everything is what, yeah, is what will help us hugely with unfounded suspicions. It's a tough one, letting go of your Christmas cookies or letting go of your Christmas presents, maybe. Think about, are you in stress still about having to find gifts? Are you sometimes wondering what you're doing to your kids if you have kids? When you keep directing their awareness to the importance of receiving material gifts? Giving, of course, is a very important heart quality, giving trust, for example, and teaching to give trust is quite time consuming sometimes. And when we have to shop for gifts all the time, I'm not saying that you do, you probably don't. But I also remember, I also, of course, put information out into the universe for all humans to pick up on with their beautiful Shen, if they're aware or not. And well, I happen to talk about Christmas, obviously, because that's what is practiced in my household. And they are very suspicious about my perspective of Christmas. My perspective of cutting trees down, and yeah, it's great that they are being planted for being cut down, but we all know that if we would just plant trees and keep them growing, climate change would be a lot changing as well into a different positive better direction. So it's just a cute story that in its totality found its way. If you are if you're still, well, I sort of decided with 18 that I will not follow that faith anymore myself, because there was too many rumors in it for me. Please don't be hurt. This is just my opinion, and if it's not important for you, then that's fine. Yeah. um, um, some traditions are worth to be looked into if they might be based on rumors or outdated information and traditions, or if we maybe can revive the traditions in a new, more total way and focus, change the focus back to real gifting, giving, trust, and love, and time for communication, for example, and so on. I'm sure you, since you're participating, probably are thinking a lot like me. And yeah, the majority of them, so when rumors and misinformation are widely circulated in our society, the majority of them are related to negative things or are negative in nature itself. What does it say about a person who easily believes negative information? It is possible that the pattern of suspicion already exists. Furthermore, because misinformation and rumors tend to be negative, over time, believing them can form a negative view of reality, which can contribute to breeding suspicion about people and things in general. Besides, negative or not, when rumors or misinformation are proven false, people's trust can be lost and the pattern of suspicion can be strengthened. In the end, the result of easily believing rumors or misinformation is the formation and reinforcement of the pattern of suspicion. When a whole society engages in this, there can be a crisis of trust. Number 4, past negative experiences. When a person has had an experience of being cheated or betrayed and badly hurt, it is possible to lose trust in people and adopt a suspicious view towards the world. So facing those situations where you feel cheated and betrayed might be very difficult, but if you face it, you will find your way out of the suspicions. You will find your way into the information of totality and replacement, and you will be able to transform this pattern. Let's look at the next point, the validity and advantage, which also will be the next question in Yuan, right? About the reasons of existence and why we still keep holding on to it. It is not easy to find any validity or advantage in the pattern of suspicion. Suspicion is different from inference or guesstimation and speculation. It is not evidence-based, and so it is not an effort to get closer to the truth. Most of the time, it leads to unpleasant, self-inflicted trouble and a manifestation of internal confusion and conflict. Inference or just guesstimation or speculation, on the other hand, is an effort to get closer to the truth or predict by reasoning based on evidence or reliable information, even though the evidence or information is insufficient. An example is when criminal investigators try to determine the course of events based on the available evidence. Suspicion is also different from reasonable doubt. For example, a colleague tells you that one of your good friends has been talking behind your back to your boss. However, you know your friend is sincere and honest. You therefore suspect that this colleague is intentionally trying to damage your relationship with your friend. This is reasonable doubt and is necessary for making sound judgments. Suspicion can sometimes make a person overly sensitive. Being sensitive is not necessarily a negative thing. On the contrary, people who are more sensitive are often more Ling. Ling, in this case, we mean spiritually in tune. In Ling Yuan, we go into our true self, heart and spirit. Our true self is connecting with one another to get to the real and true and total information about a situation, so we can transform the partial view of a pattern. Sensitivity can also contribute to the manifestation of creativity. However, if sensitivity is directed towards interpreting things negatively, especially in relationship to other people, and suspicion is encouraged, then there is a need to work on the pattern of suspicion. Hence, building resilience is also a good way of working on suspicions. I'm doing very good today with my self-love, because when I speak so much, especially reading, my throat tends to get a bit dry with all the lights here for the camera. And I sort of keep missing to drink in little sips, because I don't want the flow of the class be interrupted. So classic avoiding and hiding. Try to not bother the others. Do everything for the others, but don't take care of self. Today we have a few more little breaks, but therefore my throat seems to be more moist. Number 4, possible negative effects. Suspicion, looked at from every perspective of life, is a harmful quality. Just take that in your heart for a moment. Suspicion, looked at from every perspective of life, is a harmful quality. It is essentially creating problems out of nothing. It can harm innocent people and cause tragedy. It consumes a person's own Jing, Qi, and Shen, and makes life a burden due to the need to deal with enemies and the pain caused by the unfounded story. Suspicions ruin friendships and relationships and tears families apart. It creates unnecessary stress in the work environment. When life is overtaken by suspicion, it is as though there were traps everywhere with no place for life to settle in comfortably and securely. It closes the heart and clouds the mind and puts life in a fog. Nothing can be seen clearly. I don't know about you, but I love and am so grateful for Jan's clear and direct directions he gives us. Number 5, possible replacement information and patterns. When the pattern of suspicion is strong, we can be constantly on guard. When seeing an eyebrow raised, we think that the person is looking down on us. When we see a twitch of the mouth, we wonder if that person dislikes us. We can interpret something someone said as offensive when it was not in the least intended that way. When people are whispering, we immediately wonder if they are saying something negative about us. When a friend does not return our text message immediately, we wonder if he or she is not happy with us. Or we always wonder if something bad will happen when traveling. When a family member is a little late coming home, we wonder if there has been an accident. We even wonder if our partner still loves us when he or she does a small thing that we don't like. All these are examples of how suspicion can lead to emotional distress, fear, and anxiety. When a pattern of suspicion is established, it can manifest at any time in any situation. When we notice that this pattern is showing, it is necessary to take measures that can help us deal with it. including actively stopping it, as well as changing thoughts and resorting to rational thinking. It is also necessary to work on the causes of the pattern, for example, using 5 Shin to improve Shin Ling. So the 5 heart qualities. Good progress of any of the 5 heart qualities can automatically break down the fortress made of the pattern of suspicion and its related patterns. For example, when openness or trust is well developed, the pattern of suspicion will, by and large, automatically disappear. Very simple, right? Openness and trust. Well established. Poof. Apart from using 5 Shin, it is also necessary to work directly on the pattern. This requires an active effort to make adjustments and to make them consistently. Let's use the story of a suspect for stealing an axe as an example to look further at this. In this story, the farmer jumps to the conclusion at the very beginning and keeps following that line of thinking until it reaches a dead end. The focus is always on the imaginary target. It is as though one has drawn a circle and locked oneself inside that circle. As time goes on, the circle becomes thicker and stronger and more unbreakable. This is like weaving a cocoon around oneself and eventually completely closing oneself in. When a person does this to his consciousness won't be able to operate in a healthy way. When we notice that we are suspicious of other people, we should immediately discontinue our suspicion and start looking at why we feel this way. The rational way of dealing with it is to evaluate all kinds of possibilities fairly and objectively. The farmer should have first checked if he forgot his axe on the farm or dropped it on the way home. What can make us skip steps and jump to a conclusion based on suspicion? Could it be that we have been disturbed by what happened and are so unable to think clearly? Could it be because we are overly concerned about loss and gain? Could it be our lack of sense of security? Could it be our habit of blaming or taking things out on other people? Could it be that we already have a biased view about the person we suspect? The farmer must have seen how ridiculous he was when he found the axe. However, before we discover the truth and we lock ourselves in the circle we draw, our suspicion makes perfect sense, no matter how extremely ridiculous it actually is. Having a clear head and thinking rationally is truly essential. Apart from working on Xinling and especially building trust, Developing self-confidence can also help transform the pattern of suspicion. One can start with learning to see and appreciate one's own positive qualities and strengths. It is also important to recognize the importance of having a healthy relationship with other people. With this recognition, one needs to first develop trust in one's own ability to build such a relationship. As self-confidence grows and relationships with other people improve, there is no need to be overly worried about how one is seen by others, and then suspicion will naturally diminish. To change the pattern of suspicion, we also need to strengthen our ability to restore balance and be resilient. In real life, every person is subject to other people's comments, criticisms, misunderstandings, misjudgments, or even attacks. Such things are almost unavoidable, so there is nothing surprising about them. This is exactly the sound way to view them. They are almost unavoidable and nothing surprising about them. Yeah, this is what he means with this is exactly the sound way to view them. With this view, we can then work on dealing with events in a healthy way. For example, we can be humble and examine what is being said about us fairly and honestly to see if there is any element of truth. If there is, and we can see room to improve ourselves, then we should make a sincere effort to do so. In this case, we should be grateful to choose who criticize those. We should be grateful to those who criticize us for giving us the opportunity to grow. However, often we can feel the resentment or hostility behind what people express, and this is probably the most difficult to take and to deal with. To this, we need to understand that often people do that because they need to vent what's internally bothering them. In other words, it's their own pain and suffering that prompts them to behave that way. We do not need to take on their problems and make ourselves suffer. Yeah? So we don't need to only focus on ourselves and fall into our victimhood, for example. We can just see that they are obviously venting in rage or from fear, from insecurity. So we don't need to take this on. It is totally unnecessary to entangle ourselves this way. Instead, we should try to feel compassion for them and forgive them. Misunderstandings between people can occur very easily. Again, do not expect to never be misunderstood by other people because it is simply not possible. Our focus should be on developing the ability and the skill to deal with misunderstanding. For example, the ability to communicate successfully. When misunderstanding is not properly resolved, it can build up and create suspicion. Suspicion can further prime the soil for more misunderstanding. A vicious cycle can be formed this way. However, if we can make an effort to sincerely and honestly communicate with one another and try to understand one another better, misunderstandings and disagreements can be resolved. This peaceful way of dealing with misunderstanding can help to build trust and to clear suspicions. As to the circulation of rumors and misinformation, on the one hand, we need to keep a clear head so we don't fall for them. On the other hand, we should make sure that we don't disseminate them and cause others harm. When necessary, we need to let people know what they are, so they stop being bats flying in the dark. Yeah, so if necessary, we need to speak up. Don't stay speechless, yeah, because otherwise they will stay bats flying in the dark, right? We can't see them, only feel them when they touch our hair. Then we will be scared. Which brings us to the conclusion. We have learned about how suspicion can affect individuals or society. Let's use a couple of quotes to conclude our discussion about this pattern. Suspicion is like raging storms and wild beasts. It can confuse and disturb your mind, mistaking good for bad and right for wrong. It can harm your life, your family, and your work. This is from an unknown source. Suspicion amongst thoughts are like bats amongst birds. They ever fly by twilight. Francis Bacon. So now, please, you've heard a lot. Now let all the information go off your mind. It has gone deep into your heart. Please sit back up for the practice of Ling Yuan. If you've had your eyes open, close and draw back the vision. Lifting from Bai Hui, making sure your Hui Yin is lifted to lower Dantian. Relax even deeper. Relax. Connect with your heart. Chi. Connect with trust. Connect with your true self. Keep becoming one with your true nature. Unify your heart. You are now ready for the communion between your Shin Ling and your Shen Yi. You trust yourself that you find all the information because your heart asks the right questions, and your Shen Yi will respond with its infinite wisdom and potential in unification with the universe. Do you recognize the pattern of unfounded suspicion? Which manifestations are there from unfounded suspicions in your life? What are the causes and information about this pattern? What are the reasons for existence, and why are you still holding on to these explanations and reasons? What are the possible negative effects of unfounded suspicion? And finally, what is your intention in regards of what to do with this pattern? What are the possible replacement information? Habits, patterns, thoughts and mindsets around unfounded suspicion. And when you have gone through those questions in your own free flow, then go ahead and come back to accepting and affirming each pattern through the invitation of your Shen Yi to your heart, inviting your heart and your Shen Yi to accept and confirm and affirm with the 5 Shin qualities. To invite those new patterns from now on into your life, to live through those new healthy patterns, and to trust. Surrender and have utmost trust in your own true self. When trust is fully present, we will not be bothered by the uncertainty that surrender might bring. Your Shen is always aligned with the wisdom of the universe. Surrender to your Shen, and it will take the best care of you. Trust your Shen. When it takes over, you don't need to control anymore. You can be free. If you want to continue yourself, go ahead, allow your consciousness, your shin and your heart to keep commuting. And draw chi and information back. Tap down your legs and do the head and face before you finish or to finish up. Yuan Tong Ling.